What up, flockers? In this video, we're gonna review the Moustache Parakeet, which is a really iconic parrot and is absolutely amazing. Now, this baby Moustache Parakeet comes to us from Omar's Exotic Birds, which is my go-to store here in Southern California, and where a lot of my flock has come from. In my opinion, they do the best job keeping all the parrots out for anyone to just go in and interact with these parrots, almost like a petting zoo, because this will help tame the parrots to be really friendly. Now, they did not sponsor this video, but they were awesome enough to loan me this Moustache Parakeet for this review, so for that, thank you guys so much. Now, the Moustache Parakeet comes to us from the woodlands and forests of Southeast China and Indonesia, and they also have a couple other names. They're also known as the Java Parrot or the Red Breasted Parakeet. Now, this baby's colors haven't fully developed, and it's still a bit small. They definitely get quite a bit bigger and a lot more colorful, but right now you can see this baby's plumage, it's a little more solid, and the mustache still isn't a solid black yet. It's kind of graying in right now, but you can already see why they have the hilarious name of Moustache Parakeet. They have this band that connects their eyes and crosses right over its nose, looking like it has this mustache and beard setup, which is I mean, just so funny. Now, another cool thing about them is they are actually sexually dimorphic, meaning that the males and females, you can actually tell the difference between them. And the main way to tell is that males will have a bright orange-yellow hook bill, kind of like this, whereas the females, their beaks will actually turn black. Now, these birds are going to live in captivity of about 20 to 30 years, and that's going to be a very interesting 30 years because I best describe their personality as a very bossy cat, if that makes sense. They definitely wear that mustache really well as some like higher up boss that's telling you what it wants, and you better make that coffee the right way or it's gonna be pissed. But like a cat, it'll have its sweet moments where it's a really fun, cute little kitty. But the main question is this parrot gonna be the right parrot for you? And to break that down, we have our 6 categories, which are handleability, quietness, talking ability, care, hardiness, and upfront costs. Now, if you guys find this video really valuable, please make sure you hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm to help let everyone know just how great Moustache Parakeets are. My mission for this channel is I want to review every single parrot in existence. Seriously. So if you guys want to follow along in my mission and support me, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. I'll really appreciate that. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So first off is handleability, and for that I give the Moustache Parakeet a score of 2 out of 5. It's going to handle like a feisty cat. It's gonna have that fun, lovable cat kind of person. They're gonna love playing games, and it's just a ball of fun. They talk and stuff. I mean, they're just really active, fun parrots. But they're also not like a rough handling parrot. They're kind of like, hey, like, I enjoy our games and stuff, but you don't get too pushy on me. They're not really a cuddly parrot. Like, they'll be more like the occasional scritch when the, cat allows you to pet it. And they kind of have a very bossy and needy and beaky personality. They're gonna let you know whether it wants something or not. And as such, this bird is gonna need a lot of attention around its owner. Because the other thing about these birds is they tend to be one-person birds with the owner. And they're generally gonna be pretty aggressive to other people, so making them not very handleable to anyone else outside of the one person it bonds with. And especially if you don't handle enough, the bird can turn pretty aggressive and territorial, so you really gotta keep up with the handling with these birds. Another big downside with these birds is, like a lot of other Asiatic parrots, they do have a bluffing phase. Now, bluffing phase is where like the bird basically has this teenage rebel phase where they just hate your guts, and you're really gonna have to work through that phase. And they will get over it, they always do, but if you don't keep up with it, they end up settling in that aggressive teenage phase, and you just end up with a really mean bird and not the nice, cuddly, friendly pet they normally are. So you really gotta keep up with the handling with these birds. So overall, in my opinion, they're not a good family bird, because they're just gonna like one person and be aggressive to the rest. Though, I mean, if you keep up with a lot of constant handling with everybody, they can probably grow to tolerate other people. But also with that bluffing phase, I just don't really recommend mustache parakeets for beginners. They're definitely more for experienced parrot owners. Now next up on this list is going to be quietness, and for quietness I give it a score of 3 out of 5. Now they actually are pretty talkative and they could sometimes squawk up a storm, but they're surprisingly not as loud as you think, especially for their size. The thing is especially if you get a male, they tend to prefer talking over things like bird sounds and such, and their talking sounds are also a lot lower in volume, so they're actually relatively low volume parrots despite vocalizing pretty frequently, and as such they can actually go unnoticed in an apartment setting. So these parrots are actually great if you live in an apartment. Now while they may occasionally scream to get your attention when they're being needy, they're pretty much quiet and you can get by no problem. And that brings us to our next category, which is talking ability. And for that, I give it a 3 out of 5. Overall, especially if you get a male, they are really solid talkers. They can learn all kinds of phrases and words and sounds. I mean, if you're looking for a talking parrot, this is one of the better talking parrots you can get. Now, they do have kind of a nasally sound in their voice, and they're not exactly the most clear, and they're also very low volume, but that's partly what makes them so great, because they're also a relatively quiet parrot and not one that's going to be screaming and talking all day long and you're like, shut up. If you are looking for a talking parrot but is also pretty low volume, this is going to be one of your better options, and as such I definitely recommend these for apartment settings if you want a talker. Next up on this list is going to be care, and for care I give the mustache parakeet a score of 2 out of 5. Now for the basics, they're pretty simple. A basic pellet diet, your occasional fruits and veggies to compensate, but they're gonna have a long tail and they're pretty decent size, so you definitely want a nice size cage, as large as you can get, because these birds having such a long tail, like they're gonna need a lot of space to crawl around and fly inside their cage. Pretty much like a larger medium-sized cage. The one that's like on stands and like has a play set on top, I think that's a good size for one of these birds. But the reason why the score's so low on these birds is because they're going to need a lot of attention. You're going to be spending at the very least a couple hours a day with them, but probably more, because especially since these birds are one-person birds, that owner's time is going to have to be really devoted to this bird, because this bird is not going to tolerate and be happy around anyone else. And as such, it's going to take up a lot of your free time, because these birds are also very demanding and they want a lot of attention. And here's the problem: if you do not keep up with giving them attention, they're gonna turn into really nippy birds. They can turn pretty aggressive and you don't want that. So make sure you spend a few hours a day with your mustache parakeet. You definitely need to. And if you want this bird to tolerate other people in your family, they too are gonna have to really keep up with interacting with this bird. Otherwise, it's just not gonna tolerate anybody else. And like I mentioned earlier, if you get this bird as a baby, it's gonna have a bluffing phase where they're just gonna turn really aggressive and mean. And you're gonna have to do a lot of work, even more hours, to get them out of that bluffing phase until they're over it, and then now they turn back into a more acceptable bird. I know I keep saying like they're bossy and things, but they're also very rewarding because they have a very fun and sweet disposition. But being a very high maintenance parrot, I do not recommend these birds for beginners. Definitely more experienced people for sure. Now next up is going to be hardiness, and for hardiness I give this bird a score of 4 out of 5. They are really solid, I would say. They're really good size. This is a baby, but it's gonna get quite a bit bigger, and it's going to be a really solid medium size. Now this is really important to me in my ratings because this means that this bird is not going to be easily crushed, and it can actually handle rough handling no problem. In fact, if anything, I'm more worried about you or the person rough handling the bird than the bird itself. So I would actually keep this bird away from kids, mainly because they're pretty aggressive, and also they're very tough birds as far as things like environment goes, because unfortunately their natural habitats are being destroyed with deforestation, but they are adapting very well to urban city life. And if you know anything about birds, urban city life can be pretty tough. So for these birds to actually adapt into city life is pretty impressive. So overall, a very hardy bird. Now next up is going to be upfront costs, and for upfront costs I give it a score of 3 out of 5. It's relatively affordable. I see them go anywhere from like $600 to just over $1,000, really depending on the breeder. And then as far as cage goes, it's going to be a little more expensive because these birds, they definitely need a lot more room. So I would get like a small kind of macaw type cage, one with stands in a play set, like something big enough for them to have, because this bird can also be pretty territorial, so giving it a lot of its own personal space is going to be really important. Now these birds are really intelligent, which is one of the reasons they adapt so well to city life, but as such, they definitely want a good amount of toys to help keep their minds sharp and a lot of interaction. So that will definitely add up to the cost. But overall, after that, a relatively affordable parrot to take care of. So overall, my final score for the Moustache Parakeet is going to be a score of 2.8 out of 5. It is overall an amazing parrot that if you develop a close bond with it, you're going to have a lifelong friend. I mean, these birds are very loyal, and they're so much fun and super playful once you get past their bossy side. You can't accept this bird at its best unless you can accept it at its worst. If you can, this bird's going to be great, and these birds will reward you with a really fun time. But in the end, I don't recommend these really as family birds, and definitely not beginner birds. But if you have a lot of free time, and you don't mind having a one-person bird all to yourself that's going to be pretty much your personal guard dog parrot, then this may be the right parrot for you. And with that, guys, make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.